Awesome, we're live. Hey Twitter, Sam Arslanian here alongside Trevor Denton for Annenberg Media Sports. We're in Indianapolis right now, just wrapped up day one of the 2020 NFL Scouting Combine.
Oh, day one in the books, baby.
Huge day, we're very tired, we're running on a little sleep, so if we sound a little monotone, sorry for that. But
I'm hyped. Woo!
hype, it was a very exciting
the best
day.
woo that I can muster at this time. We've been up since yesterday, right? So day one in the books. Lots of stuff happened. Lots of news broken. Let's get right into it, man.
Yeah, so I want to start with Michael Pittman Jr., obviously one of the headliners for USC, one of the only two actually for USC
Right.
that are here at the Combine.
It's about the quality, not the quantity, Sam. It's about the quality.
And they definitely have that quality. Austin Jackson being the other one, projected to be a first-round pick. Michael Pittman Jr., dropped a little bit lower, ranked number 9 out of the receivers in the class, which any other year probably would not be the case. But this year, we'll get to that later about how special that class really is. Michael Pittman Jr., I want to get to it. I want to get your thoughts. What surprised you about him, or what were your big takeaways from him?
Man, he seemed confident. Just a couple things. He seemed really confident. Today, he got a lot of questions about his dad, which we didn't see a whole lot of at USC. It wasn't really a topic of discussion, but of course, his dad, a Super Bowl winning running back, ran for 96 yards in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Super Bowl win back when John Gruden was the head coach. And he got a lot of questions about that, about the idea of playing for Tampa Bay, kind of following in his dad's footsteps. And time again, he kind of rebuffed that. He was like, I want to carve out my own legacy as a wide receiver in this league. Like, me and my dad don't even talk about football. So I found that very interesting. He wants to carve his own path, and I think that's very in line with what we know about Michael Pittman and kind of just his character. And I'm sure you know that from interviewing him.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's got a huge family, right? We know that. I mean, his brother Micah at Oregon right now is not a bad receiver himself either.
This year with Justin Herbert, yeah,
Absolutely.
We'll talk about a little bit later too. So I thought that was really, really cool to see that he isn't about living in his father's footsteps. He wants to forge his own path. And then the other thing was how confident he was about his speed. That's been the biggest knock throughout this draft process about Pittman. We know he's physical. We know he's a good route runner, but no one's quite sure if he has the speed to separate from corners consistently, but he was very confident about that. I asked him point blank, do you think he'll run better than a 4.5? And he said yes. So I think he's going to surprise some people. I really do.
I really think that's something to look out for. Michael Pittman Jr. has really never been one of those guys that's going to beat you right off the line.
Sure.
But having time to focus just on his craft. He gets open, and he if he goes up for a ball with someone, he's going down with it 9 times out of 10. I mean, my favorite play he ever made was the Utah game in 2018. In Utah, mossed 2 defenders for a touchdown. I think 30-yard plus or something like that. It was pretty crazy. But the other thing that you actually asked him about was, are you willing to fill in terms of a special teams role like you did when he started at USC? And that's the type of guy Michael Pittman Jr. is. You're getting a world-class athlete with him.
He's a good blocker, too. That's another thing, too. He's a great blocker. Against Colorado, he had that incredible pancake that allowed Keenan Christon to score. So he's very unselfish. Teams are going to fall in love with this guy like right away.
He's not the most vocal leader, but what I think he makes up for by leading by example. I mean, he's going to be one of those guys that comes in every day ready to work, and he takes his job seriously. And you don't see that from a whole lot of players nowadays. A lot of guys are becoming more vocal leaders, I feel like.
It's kind of like the diva position, at least, like stereotypically. It's about wanting the ball, but that's not really the case with Pittman. He's willing to block. He's willing to play special teams. We've seen him block kicks in his time. And also, you have to mention at USC, I mean, he was in an air raid offense. He had to split catches with 3 or 4 other receivers, and he took that in stride, was a captain of this team, and showed great leadership. So I think teams are going to fall in love with that. He doesn't need to be the number 1 guy.
Well, talking about receivers, I want to move on a little bit. Pittman is starting his workouts tomorrow. I believe he has a bench press tomorrow at 3 o'clock Eastern time, so look out for that. Follow us on Twitter. We'll have live coverage of that as it comes out as much as we can. I want to move on to the wide receiver class. Huge wide receiver class. Like I said, Michael Pittman Jr., a fantastic receiver from USC, ranked number 9 down in the class. A lot of great people from Alabama. I know you went to a couple press conferences with some of the receivers today. I want to hear your thoughts. I went to probably more quarterbacks than receivers today, but let me hear what you saw from the receivers.
Yeah, I had some time with the receivers, specifically CeeDee Lamb, and this is really there are 2 headliners in this class: CeeDee Lamb and Jerry Jeudy. They're the guys that can go top 10. I wrote about this in an article today, but it reminds me of when A.J. Green and Julio Jones were in the 2011 class. You had these 2 guys who competed against each other in college. Same thing with Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb. They have a ton in common. They're both kind of like the same height and weight. They play the same way. They have a few differences. Judy struggled a little more with drops, and then CeeDee's much more explosive after the catch. But these are the two headliners. But the difference is, in 2011, there was a huge drop-off after those two guys. No one else in that class had more than 2 Pro Bowl appearances. Whereas in this class, I think we're going to see a lot of Pro Bowl appearances. You have Laviska Shenault. I think did you talk to him today? He had
I
some
didn't get the
interviews
chance.
today.
No, he was during his press conference was during Tua, Michael Pittman Jr., Shea Patterson, and who was a receiver from Michigan?
Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Donovan
And that
Peoples-Jones.
tells you all you
Yeah,
need to know right there about this receiver class.
Yeah,
The fact that
it's
there were huge scrums in like 6 different areas at the combine. For those of you that don't know, interviews were going on today for quarterbacks and receivers mainly, and Tua's press conference is going on right next to Michael Pittman, and you would think, with Tua, he's a huge story this year, that there would be no one at Pittman's, but there was probably 20 or 30 people. There's so much interest in all of these receivers. There's so many first-round caliber players. I think in any other year, Pittman could have been a first-round pick, but I'm not even so sure.
well, I think he could move up. I mean, if he does get under 4 or 5, like you said, he's confident he's able to do. I think he can move up.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that's holding a lot of teams back from him. I think is the NFL's kind of shifting away from the ground and pound receiver, the go up and get it kind of guy, and finding those guys that are going to win off the line and create space, from the snap. Which, I still think there's value for receivers like Pittman, and I'm sure a team will find him. I think he's going to go a lot higher than people are projecting him at.
I agree with that. He definitely has. He's one of the receivers with, I think, the most to gain because he's going to interview well. People already know about his work ethic. I want to go back to CeeDee Lamb a little bit too. Something really interesting about him that somebody asked about was, what was it like playing for 3 different Heisman finalist quarterbacks? Like, I feel like, and he had a great answer. He said it prepared him for the NFL because in the NFL you don't know who your quarterback's going to be on a weekly basis. We saw so many quarterbacks get injured this year. I think that's a huge plus for him. Jerry Jeudy was playing with Tua the entire time, whereas CeeDee had to adjust to Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, and Jalen Hurts, like 3 completely different quarterbacks. So I think he's my top choice. Who's your top receiver right now? I mean, in this crowded, loaded class, who's your top one? I'm sticking with CeeDee right now.
I'm just gonna go different. I don't like agreeing with you normally. I'll
fair.
go Jerry Jeudy.
That's fair.
Just I like what I've seen from him.
Yeah.
I think any receiver you're getting from Bama is gonna be
Amari
a top.
Cooper, Julio Jones.
There's a lot there.
They have a pipeline.
Well, the receiver class is stacked. There's also another stacked which went today. The quarterbacks, of course.
Nice little segue.
A little segue.
Yeah,
You like that?
You should be the anchor.
Hey,
That was beautiful.
that's why they pay me the
Over
big
here,
bucks,
taking
man. That's
notes
what
on
they
Sam
do.
Arslanian's tosses. It's beautiful.
Anyway, so the big one, obviously, Joe Burrow,
Yeah.
Tua, like we talked about. You also have Justin Herbert. I'm sorry, I'm slipping on the name. The Colorado Steven Montez.
Yeah.
Obviously a little bit lower, but and then your man Jake Fromm.
That's right. Yeah. That was the first guy that I went to was Jake Fromm, and I think so. I went to Jake Fromm, Herbert. I saw a little bit of Burrow, but from just interviews today, I'd say Jake Fromm impressed me the most. I think he handled his answers a little more candidly. Like Herbert very much had the pre-canned answers, It kind of reminded me of like most college quarterbacks, but Fromm was very honest. He was asked about his small hand size. He had one of the smallest hand sizes at the combine, which is this topic that gets brought up every year. He kind of laughed that off. He talked about being a leader from his freshman year. One of his first starts was against Notre Dame at Notre Dame. He talked about that very candidly and how nervous he was. Sorry to blabber on about Jake Fromm, but another moment that was really cool for me was somebody asked him what his worst game was. And I think if you ask most quarterbacks what their worst game was, they would have struggled to give an honest answer. But he was like, South Carolina, week 6 this year, I threw 4 picks. Like, and
That was a pretty obvious game to pick. I feel
right,
like
right.
That was pretty rough for
obvious,
them.
But I appreciated how honest he was today, and he also had an answer for his best game. Most guys would be like, oh, whatever game my team played the best. But no, he was like, my best game was the SEC championship in 2018. So I think we talk about pre-draft interviews. He is going to interview the best out of any quarterback. I really, really believe that. He knows his X's and O's. He's a good leader. The question for him will be the on-field stuff for sure. Who impressed you the most, though? I know you.
Yeah, I've been a big Joe Burrow fan. Obviously, I feel like the entire nation has been a Joe Burrow fan. From this year, I just think the way he reads the field is absolutely magnificent. I know.
Holds a cigar too. Swagger.
He really does,
Lots of
man.
swagger.
Yeah, you see the Barstool interview he did?
Yeah.
It's wonderful. Anyways, no, I think he has the swagger. I think he reads the field beautifully. I really think he could be a top tier NFL quarterback in a couple of years.
Describe that atmosphere for me, because I know you covered Kyler last year at the combine. You said that was packed. What was it like this year? How did he handle that kind of media circuit?
So it honestly felt like less people were at Joe Burrow's press conference this year than Kyler, and I don't know if that's just
Weird.
because there was a one, probably because it was earlier in the morning.
Yeah.
He went in at 9:30. I feel like Kyler Murray was later on in the afternoon.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what factored into it. Also, you have another stacked class where Tua's going later. People might be just coming for Tua, whereas last year it was pretty much just Kyler that like people were focusing in on.
Yeah,
I feel like
these tiny crowds
Right.
where you expected them to be. There were like 20, 30 people at like every scrum.
Yeah, and then of course you talked about it earlier, the hand thing.
Yeah.
I love Joe Burrow's tweet the night before last night. Last night his
He's like,
tweet.
I guess I have to retire.
Yeah,
My
man.
hands are too small to play in the NFL. Patrick Mahomes was like, I think you'll be just fine. Another guy who had.
I mean,
small
what he
hands.
talked about was like if he's fumbling the football a lot, that's fine. He didn't fumble the football. You know, it's only a problem when you start seeing tangible results or tangible problems arise
Right.
from that. So it's not really worried, but not really a worrying factor, I think. But the other thing he talked about was I'm sorry, I'm blinking on it right now.
I think this is just the part of the year.
I'm sorry, the Bengals. There
Right.
was this like huge rumor going around that like, oh, he's gonna deny the Bengals if they pick him, and he basically said, no, I have the chance to be a first round pick. Why would I want to be? I'm gonna go ball out wherever they pick me, and if that's Cincinnati, great. But
I think the thing we see every year with the combine is when you have a surefire number one pick like Joe Burrow, this is the part of the season where you try to tear them down. You try to come up with any negative, any fault to their game. Last year was Kyler Murray. He's too short to play in the NFL. He should be playing baseball. All of his passes are going to get batted down. He didn't really have that many passes batted down at Oklahoma. So this feels very similar. Right now, people are trying to engender these sort of stories to kind of shake things up, have a narrative to it. But I think the key part of this is that he's handled that well. And that's really all you have to do during when all this noise is going, all the smoke screens, you have to be able to handle that. And I think Burrow's got the ability to do that.
hey,
And that's almost more impressive,
very calm and collected. And the other thing, going back to Cincinnati, he said he's 2 hours and 15 minutes from home. He can
Get
he
dinner.
can play game on Sunday and go home and grab dinner from his mom.
Doesn't sound so bad
I-
at all.
Not at all.
No.
I want to move on to the last thing that we're going to cover,
Yeah.
our takeaways from today. Just before we get into our exit survey, I want to know, what do you take out of day one of the combine, your first combine covering? What do you take away?
My big takeaway, just the receiver class, obviously very impressive. I loved hearing some of those guys talk. But I have a very specific one. I was at the entire Justin Herbert press conference. And, like I said, he kind of had like pre-canned answers. I didn't get the same authenticity that I saw from what I saw from Joe Burrows or Jake Fromm's. And that in and of itself is not alarming, but he gave an answer where he said, in the beginning of his college tenure, he wasn't as much of a vocal leader, and that was the biggest thing he had to work on. So I'm wondering, is he going to be like that in the NFL? Because that could be a problem. Is he going to be a leader from day one? I have kind of question marks about that for Justin Herbert, because I feel like he's one of those guys that's a little on the quieter side, at least at first come, and I don't know if that really works. You have to earn respect immediately in the NFL as a quarterback. So I think that was my big takeaway. I'm slightly concerned about that, and the receiver class blew me away today. Those guys are just as incredible off the field as they are on the field.
I think it's really going to be interesting what happens in terms of trades during the draft. I mean, Tua is obviously a huge pick that someone's going to want early on in the draft, especially a lot of those receivers too. I think we could see a lot of trades going up towards the top. I don't know what the Lions are going to do, but they always scare me with whatever they're going to do. So that's my takeaway. Let's get into our exit questions. First, is this or what was your best day one interview? Who impressed you the most? I know you were talking a lot about Fromm's authenticity. Is it Fromm?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with Fromm. I think he had the best answers. He impressed me the most. I'm gonna stick with that.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Joe Burrow. I just thought it was great the way he dismissed the Cincinnati thing. That's like you said, they're just trying to shake him up, and
Yeah.
people are asking him some weird questions. I can't remember the weirdest one I heard, but there were a couple ones that were just like, all right, that was kind of interesting.
Right. and
Kind of an
it's
interesting
how you handle
question.
it. I think Tua also, from what I heard from Tua's, that was another really, really solid interview. He kept getting a lot of questions about like why he doesn't throw right-handed because he does everything else right-handed, but he throws left-handed. But he handled it very well. He didn't get like frustrated or pissed off at the media. He was very humble the entire time. So I'd put that at number 2.
He'll be the only left-handed quarterback in the NFL if he's starting next year.
He would. There hasn't been one since Kellen Moore in like 2011. He's the offensive coordinator for the Cowboys, so he's been out of football for a while.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
I'd be interesting to see. I'd be interested to see how that plays out.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stick with Burrow. We kind of covered both of these earlier, but I just love the way that he handled the entire interview. I thought.
I'll throw in one more just as a wild card. Jacob Eason, very calm, cool, and collected. I think that's kind of like his persona. He doesn't have the most game tape, only a 1-year starter at Washington. But I was pretty impressed by him, too. He kind of has that NFL quarterback demeanor, a little bit Big Ben-esque for me.
Yeah, Steven Montez also impressed me. I thought it was really cool. Most of the questions that were thrown his way were about Mel Tucker or Laviska Shenault, which is, I don't know. I feel like the media should. I was trying to ask him more questions about himself, but I feel like you need to.
God forbid,
I feel like you need to ask him questions about him. Like, yeah, you want to know how he feels about his teammates or his former coach leaving, and he gave great responses to all of those. I mean, he gave all props to Laviska Shenault. I mean, hell of a player right there.
Mm-hmm.
And then the whole Mel Tucker thing. I mean, his whole motto is kind of, you can't blame a guy for accepting, double the salary and double the resources. Like, I mean, how are you going to hold that against someone?
Right.
So I thought he was really collected. I want to move on to the next exit question. What statement do you not believe from today or around this time? What do you not believe?
This is when you get into the coaches. So after the players talked, a lot of the coaches and GMs from various teams spoke to the media, and there was a lot of, for lack of a better word, BS being thrown around. I think one moment in particular, John Elway was asked if Drew Lock was his quarterback of the future or if he was going to pursue another veteran, and he said Drew Lock was his answer. I don't believe that for 1 second. If there's anything I know, it's that John Elway loves like really tall, like older, experienced quarterbacks. I wouldn't be surprised if he brought in like Teddy Bridgewater, Ryan Tannehill, Phillip Rivers, someone like that to compete with Drew Lock. I didn't believe that for 1 second.
Yeah. One of the things I still don't believe, and I've said this multiple times today, is the small hand thing. I really don't think that's. I think that's just something to obsess about when the combine. I mean,
pick that one.
they call it the underwear Olympics for a reason. They want to get measurements of these guys, and they want to know exact measurements of every part of their body and how big they are, how fast they can run, how high they can jump, and hand size. While you don't want someone with super tiny hands that can't hold a football. And these are grown men. Like they can put their hand around a football, and
right.
I mean, there's guys with big hands that fumble footballs. Like it's not.
Sure.
I don't think it's that big of a thing. I don't believe the hype on that. I think that's just something the media kind of obsesses over.
I do think it can be a little bit of an issue when it starts raining. So if you're playing in a place like Seattle, by the way, Russell Wilson has some of the biggest hands in the NFL. They're like 10 inches, so it makes sense that he plays well in a place like Seattle. But I think when you get into snow, playing in Green Bay, or you get into some rain, then it can become an issue. I just thought of another one for favorite interview. This is my favorite coach interview. Mike Vrabel, just because of this one moment. He was asked to describe his relationship with Tom Brady in one word, and he said undefeated because he's now beaten Tom Brady and the Patriots twice as a head coach of the Titans. I thought that was incredible. I thought that was incredible shade at Tom Brady while also kind of batting away the question of whether he would try to pursue him. I thought that was amazing.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Got a huge laugh. Got a huge laugh from the media. Maybe the biggest laugh I saw today.
Last one. I know you love the interviews, but we're going to move on to the final one. What should fans watch out for? What is your thing that you need to watch if you're watching the combine? If you're interested in what's happening for the next class of the NFL, what do fans need to watch out for?
If you've got the need for speed, which I know you do, you're going to have to check out Henry Ruggs' 40 time, his 40-yard dash, because I think he has a legitimate chance to beat the record, which is 4.21. I think he's going to beat it. I think he's going to be the fastest player in combine history. I think he runs receivers run on Thursday or Friday. I think it's Thursday. It's Thursday. We've got official confirmation
I'm getting
from
a
the booth,
I'm getting
which
a nod.
doesn't exist.
I'm getting a nod.
We've got a nod. Henry Ruggs. This is my hot take of the day. Henry Ruggs will beat the record for fastest 40-yard dash. He's going to run a 4.20. That's what I'm looking forward to the most.
As a fast time, I'm also gonna go with a 40-yard dash performance. I think Pittman. I think that is going to do huge things for him.
Yeah.
I think that's the only thing that's really holding. The guy had what? How many? Over 100 catches this year.
101 catches.
101 catches.
1,200 yards.
Yeah, like
Blitnikoff finalist.
What more do you want from a receiver? He catches everything that's thrown his way. Like, every play he makes is a highlight play. I mean, I get he's not the fastest guy, but like,
The difference between if he runs a 4.49 and a 4.5 could be like $1 million. I mean, how crazy is that?
It
That's a split
seems
second.
ridiculous, but I think the way he's been training, and I've been seeing videos, and I know this is like PR stuff and like stuff from his vlog with his girlfriend, but like he looks faster.
Always trust the vlog. If there's one thing I know, always trust the vlog.
I don't know if they're just shooting at like at a high frame rate and he looks faster or something like that, but from what I've been seeing, he looks faster. He said he feels faster. He said he's able to get into that 4 or 5 times. So, I guess we'll have to see.
Definitely one to watch. Definitely one to watch.
Yeah, well, I'm going to wrap it up for day 1 of the NFL Combine. As always, keep up with our coverage on uscannonburgmedia.com, on Twitter @AndMediaSports, and on Instagram @AndMediaSports. Follow us on Facebook. Give us a like there. We'll be back with more. We'll have a recap posted online later tonight.
7 articles a day. We've got a live hit tonight. We've got your Combine coverage on lock.
Yeah, stay tuned for ATVN tonight. Trevor and I will be live on the show it goes live at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time. So
Whole week we've got you covered. Check it out.
whole week. So signing off for today. We'll see you after day 2. Keep it posted.